And continuing with our coverage of the high-profile meeting today, President Trump hosting Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman at the White House. Joining us now to discuss is Taylor Hathorn, visiting fellow at the Independent Women's Forum Center for American Safety and Security. Taylor grew up in the Middle East and has extensive experience in the region. So, Taylor, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. First things first, I wanted your thoughts on your view on whether Mohammed bin Salman is now fully back in Washington's good graces under this administration, because he was once labeled a pariah by former President Joe Biden, right? And now is receiving one of the most ceremonial welcomes at the White House.
Thanks for having me, Don. No, I think it is very apparent of the friendship that President Trump has with Crown Prince Mohammed, and I think that is definitely shown in the relationship that they had today. At one point in the press conference they had with President Trump mentioned that in no world in which is it required for a crown prince or a president to have this kind of openness and open conversation with the press and with the American people about just what to expect. I think it was a long way to show that the prince and the crown prince in Saudi Arabia is really wanting to work with the United States and work within our norms to be a good partner and a good ally to the United States.
And the crown prince also said during that meeting that it is in Saudi Arabia's own interest as well, speaking about the investments. And besides that, I also wanted to talk about the crown prince's work and goals. What do you think here? To what extent has he tried to move Saudi Arabia away from its past associations, right, with radical fundamentalist ideologies?
Yes, I think there's no doubt that Saudi Arabia has made progress in this regard, but it still ranks among the in human rights violations and women's rights violations. And so while we have to recognize that they are doing good work, are moving forward in progress, and that this is an expectation of the United States to continue partnership with us and to continue advancement with us. This does not mean that they are at the top of the charts and that it is good for women or people in general to live in Saudi Arabia. So I think we have to be really careful with that rhetoric, but we also have to understand that Saudi Arabia is an incredibly important partner to the United States. We've got China on the forefront of our minds, and China's relationship with the rest of the world and with other nations in the Middle East could be very concerning. And I think that Saudi Arabia's investment in us and the United States and our infrastructure is going to be a really important part of us winning this fight in the future.
How do you think Mohammed bin Salman wants the world to view Saudi Arabia currently? You mentioned progress earlier, but there's still more to be done, right? Are you optimistic or not that this progress will continue?
I am optimistic that it will continue. And I think if you look at nations, you look at Qatar, you look at the Emirates, you look at Saudi Arabia and the changes that are being made. These nations are deeply committed to making changes to be an economic epicenter for their region of the world. They want to be like the United in the Middle East. They want to lead, not just economically, but politically. It is why they are, even during the first Trump administration, were amongst the first nations to be involved in the Abraham Accords, because they want to be the leaders of peace in their own hemisphere. And I think that is something that we can expect to be maintained. I also think it's really important to note that this next generation of leadership, the incoming crown prince, him house instead of the king, is a really important nod to this is the direction that the nation is heading in, and this is what we can expect from Saudi Arabia moving forward. Now, whether or not they continue with their human rights progress will be yet to be seen, and I can assure you that Independent Women's Forum will be monitoring that in the years to come. But I am personally, just having grown up overseas, really excited to see them at the table. And a $1 trillion investment in the United States is nothing to shy away from. This is a huge, huge deal for both of our nations.
Okay, so you brought up the Abraham Accords briefly just now, and I want to pull on that thread a bit more. President Trump wants Saudi Arabia to join the Accords, and the Crown Prince said he wants to join it, but there needs to be a path to Palestinian statehood. What are the prospects of a Saudi-Israel normalization deal right now?
Well, I mean, I think you heard them talk about it when they were talking about the F-35s, and Israel needs to be able to maintain a qualitative advantage in that weaponry. And, you saw President Trump say that Saudi Arabia is an ally, just as Israel is an ally. And I think that nod from the president in the Oval Office was a little bit of the respect that MBS needed to be able to say America was serious about having them at the table. I do not think that Saudi Arabia is going to let their foot off the pedal about Palestinian statehood. Up to the Palestinian people whether or not they're going to choose to recognize Israel's right to exist, and whether the Israeli people are going to do the same for the Palestinian people in that regard.
So, Taylor, we were talking about what role does China play in all this with my previous guest earlier just now. Do you think there's an intention, I want to ask you this question, behind this meeting between President Trump and the Saudi Crown Prince, sort of moving Saudi Arabia from China and Iran as well?
I don't think that there is any conflict that the United States or situation that the United States is involved in right now that does not involve China in some way. That is not giving China more credit than they are due. It is just that they are our adversary at the moment. And yes, we're playing nice with them and they are playing nice with us at the moment regarding diplomatic and economic relationships. But I have to wonder that whether we had a president that was as strong as President Trump is, whether or not she and the CCP and the PLA be as cooperative at the moment. So I do believe this has a lot to do with China's desire to have a footprint in every corner of the world so that they can continue authoritarian and dictatorial regimes throughout the world.
Okay, Taylor, I just have one last question on my mind here. More broadly speaking, how important would you say Saudi Arabia is to the U.S.'s foreign policy goals?
I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I think that the world at large needs leadership in the Middle East. I think that you see that with the United Arab Emirates, you see that with Qatar, and we hope to see that with Saudi Arabia. I think it is very important in that region. That is yet to be seen on the role that they play in the world as a whole. I think that they have to get the human rights record up to be able to have a seat at that table. Like, yes, right now they're chairing the Committee on Women and Girls in the UN Security Council or the UN United Nations. And I think that gives them an opportunity to see what they can do and what they're made of. And I think the rest of the world is watching, and they're watching the leadership that they have in that regard. And so I think that is yet to be seen, role they play on a global scale. But I have hope in this young leadership, and I have hope in what the GCC nations really want to contribute to advance in democratic values for the rest of the world.
Yes, I think we all have hope that the U.S.'s involvement here will move Saudi Arabia to be more positive in terms of its human rights. Okay, Taylor, really a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you so much.
Always.